Good evening, everyone. Am I audible?
Good evening, ma'am. Yes, ma'am,
Yeah.
audible.
Okay. Is this today's first class? Is this class today's first class?
No, ma'am.
So
No, ma'am.
Because since we have only 13 participants, so I was I thought it's the first class. Why the attendance is low today? Post election. Okay. Anyway, this is day 4, so we'll discuss the second topic of second module. Before we dig into that topic, I'll give you a small situation and you try to give your opinion on that, right? Now, let's assume we are talking about the managing director of NALCO. Managing director of NALCO, the Angul unit, where he is resident, he has been given a resident by the company. The resident is 1 kilometer away from the factory. The township, they have a township. NALCO, the factory have a township, and they have given a residential accommodation to the managing director or the general manager GM of the factory. And he is staying that in that residence, which is 1 kilometer away from his workplace. What would be the means of transport that he would use to commute to office? What would be the preferred mode of transport? Now, options are, since this is a very small distance, at best 1 kilometer, he can drive, he can walk down, he can come by a bicycle, let's suppose to project a eco-friendly image or ecological environmental activist image, he can ride a cycle or a motorbike or a car. And in that car, he can prefer to have a small car, A segment car or a B segment car. Or he can take some public transport like a auto or a cab or a town bus. Or he might take a lift with some of the employees of that unit who are driving to the office. What would be his preferred mode of transport?
You would prefer to come in car.
Any car, or there would be some specification in that car also. It would be a segment car or
Specified
B.
car. Like SUV model or something like that.
Okay. And why do you say so?
For their
What is
own, means it is as per their social status to indicate.
And what if do everybody in the group agree to this, or someone has some different opinion? First, let's take if there are different opinions, then we'll move further. Our group रे किए अछनी जहाँ करो ए छोड़ा किसी अन्य opinion अच्छी? So let's suppose this is a unanimous opinion. Everybody agrees to this. So what is the base? What if he doesn't drive in that? What will happen? से धर से कार रे आसिलेनी गोटे होंडा सिटी किंबा गोटे किया सेल्टॉस किंबा गोटे ऑडी किंबा गोटे मर्सिडीज if he is not driving in that, what will happen?
Nothing much will affect, but one thing is the social status will means which indicate, like nowadays our status indicates the way lifestyle we present.
Okay.
So maybe that
my question is, if nothing will happen, then what is the basis of this preference? Or we can put it like this. We may not say, yes, Nirendita.
Her or his attitude or preference.
His attitude?
Preference.
Pardon, I'm not getting your point.
Preference.
Okay. Rather, I can put it like this. See, if he will not drive in that preferred, that specific vehicle, then he would be trolled by the critics. Right? if not on his face, but at the back, critics would always criticize, and he would be considered as maybe a miser, or a person with low exposure, or a person without any lifestyle exposure. People would start commenting like this. True or false?
Yes, ma'am. True.
Yeah. But officially, his role may not be affected. Officially, the respect he owe from others may not be affected. His roles and responsibilities may not be affected. But socially, his image will always get affected. Right. That means with this example, we conclude that our consumption pattern is highly influenced by our social class belonging. आमे जो सोशल क्लास को बिलोंग करछु हम कंजप्शन टा से सोशल क्लास रो कैरेक्टरिस्टिक द्वारा बहुत परिमाण रे इट इज गेटिंग अफेक्टेड. True? All of you agree to this?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
today's topic is we'll discuss what is social class, what are the different classes in the, or how the society has been divided into classes, what are the characteristics of those classes, how these classes are measured, and how this information is used in consumer behavior, or how marketers use this information of concept of social class in their marketing strategies, right? So, any doubt from attitude? In the last class, I have discussed about attitude. So today's topic
No, no.
is social class, right? Social class. Would anybody like to say what is social class? What is social class? And how it is formed? Social class is basically a division of the society. The simplest way of explaining social class is the division of the society into classes or into groups, right? And what happens when we divide the society into groups? We tend to, or we can find out groups who behave alike, whose beliefs are alike, who set norms or regulations for themselves. Each class or each group forms certain norms and regulations for themselves. Other members of that group are, they have to compulsorily abide by those norms or regulations. When they don't obey those norms and regulations, they are considered as antisocial or unsocial. And each group shows a specific kind of similar behavior. Members of each group shows a specific kind of similar behavior, right? So basically, about a simple way of defining social classes. Social class is a division of the society. And when the society is divided, they are placed, the different divisions, different groups formed in that division collaborate, different groups would have formed, they are placed in an order, or we call it a hierarchy, from lower class to upper class. So social class is a hierarchical division of the society. All the classes cannot be horizontally placed on one platform. Rather, they are arranged in a hierarchy or order, where the order is from lower class to upper class. But the social concept of social class is not very rigid. In the context, rigid nuha mane, a member of each class. It does not mean the person who is born in a class would die out in that class. There is always a flexibility of moving up or down in the hierarchy. Not only there is a provision of moving up in the class system, there is also provision of moving down in the class system. So it is not a very rigid concept, and consumers or people who fall in a group by birth, by parenting, by inheritance have always a scope or opportunity by using different factors like education, income, occupation. They can always move up or move down in the hierarchy. So social class is a concept, is a mechanism, or it is a tool which basically is considered as a tool of segmentation by marketer. Marketer को benefit कौन मिले? तांको जब society टा divide ही जाऊँची groups रे, आउ group टा गोटे group जोड़ा गोटे order रे arrange करा होची, they can clearly make out or use these groups as segments, market segments. And when they use them as market segments, it is very easy for them to identify what are the behavioral norms of each group. What they consume, what they accept, what they reject, what are their values, what are their opinion, what are their preferences, what are their tastes, what is their affordability. A suppose in Saguda, you can be identified by analyzing a class of the society. Each class behave differently from every other class. Right? So we can define social class as a hierarchical division of the society. It is a hierarchical division of the society, or it's the division of members of a society in a hierarchy of different status classes. So the base of this division of the society is the status. Now, what is status? Status is basically the respect or the ability to influence others, or it is the respect that you can own from other members of the society. And to own this respect, to get this respect, what are the factors? What are the variables? The variables are wealth, power, and prestige. So status is basically a power, or status is basically a reflection of the self in the society, or how others in the society are giving respect to an individual. To get respect from the individual, to get respect from the members of the society, the three variables, most important variables that are used or can be used to build that status is, first one is wealth. Either inherited or earned. Power, which might come from activities or engagements, and prestige, which is the outcome of wealth and power. Right? So social class, it is a division of the society. The base of that division is status. Why the general manager of NALCO should prefer or should ride in that particular specific vehicle is because he has to maintain the status that he owns in the society. This status would speak about his status would, or his consumption would speak about his wealth, his power which is he got from his roles and responsibilities that he is playing in the organization or in the society, and the prestige he owns from the other members of the society. So eighth inta jinsoku reflect Korea pai. When I ask the question, what if he will not consume? What if he will not consume? When he will not consume, he cannot with that consumption. You see, you cannot move with your passbook in the society and show this is my wealth. You have to communicate that wealth with we have to communicate our wealth or possessions with our consumptions. And this wealth will call for power. And power on as a consequence will bring prestige. So wealth, power, and prestige are three variables of building status which are highly interrelated. And all these three can be reflected with your consumption pattern. So what if we don't obey the rules of our class, the class we belong to, is we will fail to communicate these three things to the society. So when we fail to communicate these three things to the society, it is very difficult to earn status from others, to get respect from others. And the status, measurement of status is always done on a relative basis. What you own, what you possess. Your possessions determine your social standing. People who have a lot of money in the bank, but they don't invest or spend money in their public consumptions. They don't show do consumptions which will speak about their wealth. They don't live in or reside in well-built houses. They don't put on branded clothes. They don't move to social places or gatherings. Those kind of people, they possess a lot of wealth, but they don't tend to get respect from the society. Right. So the basics, the division, so if social class is a division of the society, the base of that division is the status. Bujela? Did you get the point?
Yes, ma'am.
Right. These are three concepts. One is social class is the division, hierarchical division of the society. One, the base of that division is the status. Two, And status is expressed in, or you obtain, or a member obtain status from wealth, power, and prestige. These are three things. Then how to measure this status? There are three ways of measuring status. First is the subjective measurement of status. Subjective measurement means the individual whose status is being measured, he himself measure his status and would say that I belong to this class of the society. Subjective measurement means it is a assessment made by self-perception. तमे निजे कौन भावुचो तम status केते. According to that, which class you put yourself to. And when you put yourself to certain class, you follow the consumption pattern of that class. So social class measurement, to measure the social class of an individual, first is a self-perception method where the individual himself measure his social class and tend to put himself in a particular class. Mu nije koibe mu lower class ko belong korchi na middle class ko belong korchi na upper class ko belong korchi. If I feel I belong to the middle class, then I will follow the consumption pattern of middle class. If I tend to perceive that I belong to upper class, then I'll tend to follow the consumption pattern of the upper class. So it is based on a self-assessment. People themselves assess which class they belong to. Second method is called a reputational method or reputational approach, where others will tell which class you belong to. It is an assessment by others' perception. Anya mane kon bhabuchandi? By looking onto my consumptions, by looking on my lifestyle, by looking on my activities, my engagements, my interests, my opinions, my role in the society, the activities I do in the society, public consumption jaha korchi, publicly jo consumption guda korchi, se sabu through what others perceive about my class belonging. Right? And बेले बेले कौन हुए निजर perception और others का perception mismatch हो जाए. And that happens when you, like for example, your actual self or your actual status is something else, and you perceive or you pretend to exhibit a different status. More status, more wealth jete achi, more financial worthiness jete achi, mote let's suppose, for example, it is not allowing me to drive a car. But I perceive mu gote upper class member mu loan neki gote car kindeti. Now I feel since my credit worthiness does not match to that credit facility, more credit worthiness nahi je mu gote car te loan le neki maintain kari ki chalai paribi. So when I do that, more self-assessment kintu kochi mo upper class ko, others ka perception kochi no she or he belongs to the middle class. More a nijer self, more a situation in terms of wealth and reputation, everything says that I belong to middle class. Kintu mu nije bhabuchi mo upper class. When there is a mismatch, then there will be a role conflict. Then people are confused, they enter into wrong kind of consumptions, they build up liabilities in life, both dhar kharach kari pakebe, tapare seguda ko manage kari paribeni, and their life end up with tragedy. So second approach is how others perceive me, and that others perception is related or is based on my public consumptions, on my lifestyle, activities I do, roles and responsibilities I take up, and opinions and or beliefs I carry in my mind. And the third is called objective measurement. Objective measurement, this is a method where some variables are used to measure the social class of a consumer or a person. Those variables can be education, can be your profession, can be your income, can be your wealth you have created, success in life, can be anything. It depends on the researcher what variable they will classify the society. So objective method is when certain variable is used to measure the class belongingness of the individuals. Let's suppose I'm taking education as a variable. Then as per education, I'll put the people into groups. It might be below undergraduates, graduates, postgraduates. I can use wealth as a variable to divide the society into classes. This is called objective measurement. Clear? Understood? Tinita method of measurement बुझा हैला?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. One is subjective, made by self. मु निजे decide करबी को class को मु belong करची. गोटे हैला reputational, where others opinion will decide, others perception will decide मु को class को belong करची. Third हैला गोटे objective measurement, where a variable is used to establish the class belongingness of an individual. Next is the characteristics of social class. Social class ro characteristics कौन? And this characteristics of social class is of interest to the marketeers. Marketeer interested hele honti a characteristics of social class. The first characteristic of social class is that it is ordered. Social class is ordered. Order means it is a hierarchical arrangement from lower to higher. Right? Like ମୁଁ ଯେମିତି କହିଲି ଆମେ class social class measure କରିବା on the variable education. So then I told undergraduates, graduates, postgraduates. So I am putting them in a order from lower to higher or higher to lower. And all these three classes I identified, they are different from each other. Their behavior will also differ, their beliefs will differ, their opinion will differ, and so their consumption will differ. So the first characteristics of social class is it is a hierarchical arrangement, or it's the order where classes are arranged in a order from lower to higher or higher to lower. The second characteristic is it is mutually exclusive. Each group, each class is very different from the other class on any parameter. जो भी parameter तमे देखी नबो सादरे गोटे क्लास आउ गोटे क्लास रु तांकर बिहेवियर तांकर हैबिट्स तांकर एंगेजमेंट तांकर बिलीफ्स ओपिनियन वुड बी different from each other. You will not find there a common arena between any two classes. They are mutually exclusive in any terms. जो ये कौन से हमें wealth को जैसे धरिबा wealth रे से माने different from each other. Education धरले they are educationally different from each other. यदि हमें consumption देखिए they are consumption wise different from each other. Each group is different from the other, and each group, the members of one group has similarity. But the members of two groups don't have similarity. गोटे ग्रुप रो सबु मेंबर को भीतर सिमिलारिटी थिबो किंतु कोनोसी दीटा ग्रुप रे सिमिलारिटी नथिबो. The third is it is a continuous approach. Social class is a continuous approach, means people can move across this hierarchy. People can move across this hierarchy. If some individual today belongs to the lower class of the society, down the line with acquiring higher knowledge, or with getting professional success, or with getting occupational success increment, he can move up to middle class. Similarly, individuals in the middle class, by acquiring certain traits of the upper class, can move into the upper class. It is a continuous process. People can move from one class to the other class. It is not like a caste system where the caste you are born with, you remain in that caste. Since Mutinita Jinsa Koili, social class is related to status, and status is judged by wealth. And what are those three factors I told?
Wealth, power, and prestige.
Yes. So these are the three things which are neither inherited, are not very static. It depends, or it varies from situation to situation, context to context. These are related with very many factors. Wealth can always increase or decrease. Prestige can always go up or come down. Power can also always increase or decrease. So all these three things with which we judge a status are not static. So class belongingness is also not very rigid or static. Individual can move up or down in the class system. It is a continuous phenomenon. We have instances of moving up. People who become successful professionally or by any other means, they move up in the class system. And there are also instances where people come down in the class system. Like for example, ଯେତେବେଳେ ଆମର ସବୁ surnames ଦିଆ ହେଇଥିଲା government of India, ଯେତେବେଳେ Britishers ମାନେ ଥିଲେ, ଜମିଦାର ଥିଲେ, ଚୌଧୁରୀଜ, ये जो सब डेजिग्नेशन गुडा को एलोकेट करा हितला बाय ब्रिटिशर्स, एंड अगेंस्ट दैट तांको बहुत गुडा लैंड प्रॉपर्टीज एलोकेट करा हितला. द गवर्नमेंट व्हेन केम जेतो डेमोक्रेसी हमर सेट हला और गवर्नमेंट आसी की गवर्नेंस चेंज हे गला कंट्री रा, दिस designations were taken away along with those properties assigned or aligned to them. So that was a movement down in the hierarchy. And fourth characteristic is social class is not related with any single variable. We cannot judge the class system or the characteristics of the members of a class system on any single variable. It's always a combination of many factors. And fourth is social class is very influential. Every upper class tend to influence the consumption or behavior of the next immediate class. लोअर क्लास लोक सदाबले मिडिल क्लास को इमिटेट करंती, तांका कंजप्शन को फॉलो करिया चाहती, मिडिल क्लास सदाबले अपर क्लास रा कंजप्शन को फॉलो करिया चाहती, इमिटेट करिया चाहती. एवरी क्लास influence the consumption or the behavior of the next immediate lower class. So it is very influential. For marketers, the benefit is that I'm a nationally successful brand कि मैं गोटे global brand को upper class accept करी नहीं ची, consume करूची, और middle class inspire करती, aspire करती से brand को use करे पे, you can always offer a lower model of that product at a lesser price, relatively lesser price to the next lower group. Right? So, जितने बड़े जो भी class लोगों, if middle class are your consumers or target market, you can always offer a brand extension to the lower class because you know lower class is imitating or is getting influenced by the middle class consumption. Similarly, middle class, upper class, if you got a product you are launching, then you can always offer a brand extension of that or a variant of that to the middle class. As we know, they are getting influenced with the upper class consumption. Next is how social class is related to consumer behavior. Right. So the factors which build social class in general are occupation, education, ownership means possessions, and income. These are the four socio-economic factors which build status of an individual. First, you graph diagram को simplify कर दूँगी. The चारिटा socio-economic factors, that is occupation, education, ownership means possessions. आम पाखरे कौन possession अच्छी, मो घर केमतिया, मो गाड़ी केमतिया, मो केमती कपड़ा पिंजी, कौन खाऊची, केते थोड़ा डाइनिंग और बाहर को जाऊची, केमते हॉस्पिटल सर्विसेज नौची, all my possessions, everything that I own, and my income. These four socio-economic factors decide the status of an individual. And as per the status, individual fall in it is at group there can be many types of groups. There can be some societies, there are two groups, lower class, upper class. Some societies, there are three groups, lower, upper, middle class. Some societies, there are 6 class types of classification. There are even societies where there are 9 types of classification. Jete rich or poor ko bhitare gap wide thibo. The larger, the wider the gap between rich and poor, more would be the number of classes in between them. But this class concept or this formation of class is based on these 4 socio-economic factors. Primarily, ajika date re agaru inherited wealth भी तादरे आस्तुला, बहुत बड़ा जिनसे तादरे आस्तुला. Ebbe primarily, these are the 4 socio-economic factors which decide the status of an individual, and that status take an individual into this social standing or this any of the class of the society. Ebbe primarily the market is using, or the Indian context dekhiba, then our social standings would be upper class, middle class, lower class. Ebbe gote nuwa ta bitare, since the family structure are changing, role of women are changing, women liberalization is taking a peak now. Education among girls or women is going up now. So gote nua class add he jaichi, that is the working class. People in the working class have again a specific kind of preference. They are preferring certain kind of goods and services. ସେଥିପାଇଁକା ଆମେ Indian society କି ଯଦି ଦେଖିବା ଆମେ ଗୋଟେ ନୂଆ class introduce ହେଇଯାଇଛି, that is the working class, people who are professionally very active. Yes. Like for example, marketers who are interested in that class are MTR, ready to mix meals or snacks, ready to use snacks जो or do it yourself snacks आमे जाको कहूछु, जोटा MTR उपमा, इडली मिक्स, ढोकला मिक्स, गुलाब जामुन मिक्स, एमे सब प्री मिक्स जो कैटेगरी आसी जाइची मार्केट रे, फूड प्री मिक्सेस, where the food, a premix of the food has been made available to people who are in this members of this working class, who have a very hectic life. They are leading a life of 24/7. ସେମାନଙ୍କୁ ପାଖରେ ଏତେ ଟାଇମ ନାହିଁ ଯେ ବସିକି ଗୋଟେ ଫ୍ୟାମିଲି ପାଇଁକା ବ୍ରେକଫାଷ୍ଟ ରେ ଉପମା ଇଡଲି ଏସବୁ ତିଆରି କରିବେ. So they buy premix packages and the price of the packages has been designed so that this working class can afford them. What they have to do, they have to only cut those premixes, mix it up with some formula, and they can do the cooking within a short span of time. Right. And each class are unique in terms of these behaviors, consumer behavior. The upper class are different in their preferences. They consume different types of commodities. Their communication would be different. Upper class, like for example, let's suppose you are selling a perfume. You are selling a perfume to the upper class. You'll never find marketers selling perfumes to upper class advertising in any television. Rather, those are the products which are advertised in magazines, because the upper class is not expected to be exposed more to televisions or soap operas or serials. Similarly, when like for example, polio, advertisement of polio, advertisement of tractors. You will not find advertisement of tractors, a lot of tractors in magazines. Rather, you will find those advertisements in rural villages are in form of wall painting. Wall jo school lo pacheri thibo kimba hospital lo dispensary ro pacheri thibo kimba gote public place ro pacheri thibo, gaam managari you will find the advertisement of tractors being painted on those walls. So their form of communication is different, their consumption is different, they purchase different kind of things, and their preferences are also different. Right? Now, these are the different types of social classes. The modern societies or the Western societies where the gap between and rich and poor is very marginal. The gap between rich and poor is not very high. There the society is divided into two groups, the lower class and the upper class. In most of the developing countries, there are either the society is divided in 3 categories or max 4 categories. Those 3 and 4 categories are either in lower class, middle class, upper class, or lower class, lower middle class, upper middle class, upper class. In the 4 category division, the middle class is divided further into 2 types, lower middle class and upper middle class. In a 5 type of categorization, again the middle class is divided. This middle class in the market is the largest part of the market. The middle class of the society is a very large part of the society. So it is further divided into 3 categories, lower middle class, middle class and upper middle class in 5 category division. And this categorization or division can go up to 9 categories. You can divide the society into 9 categories, and underdeveloped countries, especially underdeveloped countries, some part of South Africa and some part of Asian countries, which are underdeveloped countries, there we normally find a 9 category classification of the society. in which all these three categories, lower, middle, and upper, they are further divided into three groups. Lower, middle, upper, lower, middle, upper, middle, lower, upper, middle, upper. And all these 9 groups in the society, they show exclusive behavior. You would find the behavior of even upper middle class and upper class and middle upper class very different and exclusive. Because in those developing countries or especially in underdeveloped countries, the gap between rich and poor is very huge. Is quite influential, and the difference in terms of education, wealth, occupation, you will find a great difference. Higher diversity. So since in developing countries, we normally nowadays are finding this 3 category division of the society. The society is divided into lower, middle, and upper class. I'll like to tell you about, or let's discuss about the characteristics of lower, middle, and upper class and how marketeer would be interested in that, or how marketeers would be benefited with that. People, normally the lower middle class, the 3 categories, that 3 category division, that is the lower, middle, and upper class. The people, let's talk first about the individuals or members of the upper class. Members of the upper class are people, individuals who are rich in terms of wealth. But the type of wealth they possess are normally, or by and large, basically is inherited wealth in form which they obtain in form of paternal property. This is not the wealth which they have earned by self. Rather, they have got it transferred as in form of paternal property. So these are people who are very intellectual, since they are very high on that paternal wealth. They are very intellectual. They might be liberal or conservative. Certain nature and attitude over depend करते हैं. I mean, conservative भी परंतु liberal भी परंतु. But normally these are people who are very high on intelligence or very highly intellectual people. କାହିଁକି intellectual? କାରଣ ଏତେ paternal property ଅଧିକା ଥାଏ, ସେମାନେ ଛୋଟ ବେଳରୁ by birth they are exposed to a different society. ତାଙ୍କର parents ମାନେ they belong to the upper class, so as the parental influence, ସେମାନେ by birth are exposed to that upper class or to a upper class society. So they by birth or from in the process of brought up, they gain intelligence. They are intellectual. ସେମାନେ abroad studies କରିଥାନ୍ତି, ବାହାର universities ରେ ପଢିଥାନ୍ତି, ବାହାର society କିମ୍ବା ବାହାର traditions, rituals ସାଙ୍ଗରେ expose ଥାନ୍ତି. So these are intellectual people. They might be political, since I told you they have not, the wealth is not their self-earned wealth. It is the inherited wealth. So this kind of people are normally or most often politically and socially active. ସେମାନେ ବହୁତ ଗୁଡା political କିମ୍ବା social activities ରେ indulge ଥାନ୍ତି. They invest a lot of money and they try to ensure that the money they invest would bring returns. ସେମାନେ ଏମିତିଆ ସବୁ ଜିନିଷରେ invest କରନ୍ତି ଯୋଉଥିରୁ ତାଙ୍କୁ ଗୋଟେ future ରେ returns ମିଳିବା ନିହାତି ଦରକାର. Because these are not people who are very professionally very successful. Like for example, Saif Ali, the prince of Pataudi family or Nawab. Their prior generations were very successful. He inherited a lot of wealth, but he is not professionally very successful. Though he is not professionally very successful, but he is very rich. So since he is very rich, he has money, and since he is not professionally successful, that ନିଜର income ର source ଏତେ ଅଧିକା ନାହିଁ, so they try to use that inherited wealth in investments. In kind of investment which should ensure a higher return for future. And whenever they would consume anything, their consumptions, before doing any kind of consumptions, they carefully do a information search. They normally show high-end consumptions, unique, highly differentiated consumptions. ସେମାନେ ଯଦି କାର କିଣିବେ ଗୋଟେ ଡିଜାଇନର କାର କିଣିବେ, ସେମାନେ ଆଟାୟାର କିଣିଲେ ଡିଜାଇନର ଆଟାୟାର କିଣିବେ। ସେମାନଙ୍କୁ ଭଲ ଲାଗେନି ମାନେ ମୁଁ ଗୋଟେ ଜିନିଷ ୟୁଜ କରୁଛି ଆଉ ମାର୍କେଟରେ 50 ଜଣ ସେଇ ଜିନିଷଟାକୁ ୟୁଜ କରୁଛନ୍ତି। They are very exclusive in their consumption. So since they are very exclusive in their consumptions and spend money, they are very careful in doing information search before doing a consumption. And most often they rely on the co-product, co-category of product or kemta product tanku impress kariyo products which have real attributes, real differentiated attributes. If you can present them with a product which has a very different attribute from other products, those kind of products will impress them. ଯେତେବେଳେ ଆମେ କହୁଛୁ products with different or unique attributes, the concept of designer is something which brings that uniqueness. When Manish Malhotra says that I am designing a dress for you, means that there won't be a second copy of that dress. That will be highly differentiated and highly unique. There will not be a second copy of it in the market to be used by any other individual. And they are quite impressed with this concept. So brands like Bugatti, they offer cars, a highly customized car. You can choose every element of the car before placing an order. Starting from the color to the size to the specifications, seat height, knee space, roof space, everything you can select. So they are called designer cars. They would design a car based on your specification. And upper class of people show this kind of consumption. Whereas middle class includes all those individuals who are professionally very successful. They are also rich. Middle class, we can put them into two groups, lower middle class or upper middle and upper middle class. The upper middle class, the upper part of the middle class, they are professionally successful and are rich. Their wealth is self-earned wealth. They have earned that wealth. सेटा तांको निजर effort रो सेमाने wealth ता accumulate करचंती. They have not inherited it as a paternal property. पैतृक संपत्ति भाबे ताको inherit करनांती, निजे earn करचंती. So they will not spend that wealth on things which are used to showcase status only. So तांको consumption गुड़ाको highly status oriented नुहा. Rather, they will try to consume everything which will speak about their profession. They will spend on education. They will spend on clothing. They will spend on households. Right? Like for example, the upper class loco prefer while buying house, he will buy a bungalow, whereas the upper middle class will prefer a penthouse. The upper class would be very keen on how the house looks, whereas the middle class or upper middle class will be keen on what is the location of what is the locality of the house. Is that locality communicating my profession or my status? The locality re ao kiye rohuchandi. Who are the people who are residing in the neighborhood? Whereas upper class रो लोको देखो घरटा केमती देखा जाउछ नेबरहुड जहा एतो घरटा यूनिक आ डिजाइन्ड डिफरेंशिएटेड घर ना नाही कि यूनिक लुक अछि ना नाही. And this middle class people, they spend on vacations, they spend on household goods. तांको घर भलो देखिबार थाए ता घरर सबु consumption household, all household consumption should speak about their professional success. They don't try to express their ego in their consumption, whereas upper class try to express their ego in their consumption. And the third group is called the lower class of the society. Lower class are basically considered as people who are poor. When we say poor, we mean that their affordability is very low. And in terms of education also, they are set at a lower level. And their consumptions are mostly survival related consumptions. They do consumptions which would help them to survive and exist in the society. Their consumption is no way related to any class belongingness or status belongingness. They don't want to show their status in their consumptions. And this kind of people, since basically depend on certain aids by different organizations or government, they are looking for schemes, they are looking for subsidies, they are looking for aids, they are looking for sanctions by the government. Even if they will have money, they will not use that money to establish their lifestyle. से केवल जेतिकी तांकर सर्वाइवल नीड्स अछि ताको फुलफिल कर देकी बाकी पैसा को they will try to save it for future. Right. So out of these three categories of the society, the marketeers today are highly fascinated to serve the middle class. This middle class extends in a range from lower middle class to upper middle class. And when the company is serving to this middle class, they have a large market, they have groups inside that market, and they have opportunities to offer different brand extensions of products to cater to the need of that lower middle class. Like for example, Titan. Now Titan is selling watches, which is a timepiece, right? So starting from if we'll talk about the brand extensions of Titan, starting from Sonata, Citizen to Titan, Raga, Fast Track, Xylene, Octane, and many more. What they are trying to do, a watch of Sonata or Citizen is offered to the market at 400, 500 rupees, and a timepiece of Xylene or Octane is being offered at 30,000, 40,000 rupees to the market. Watches of Raga are offered at 5, 6, 7, 8,000 to the market. Watches of Fast Track are offered at 9,000, 10,000, 12,000 to the market. Now, watch is a timepiece. I told watch is a timepiece. But it is presented by Titan in a way that it is today considered as an accessory, not a watch. An individual while going to gym would prefer a Fast Track over a Octane. The same individual would prefer that Octane while going to office. He would put up a smartwatch when he is in the playground. He would prefer to put a Raga piece on his hand if attending a wedding ceremony. Now, so watch has been repositioned as not a timepiece but a accessory, a tire accessory. Now, since they are offering these watches of Titan to that middle class, in that middle class there is a range, wide range, and they have many extensions for each class of that middle class, for each group of that middle class. Similarly, if we talk about Surf, Surf is offering so many extensions to the brand. Surf, Surf Blue, Surf Dot Magnetic, Surf Kids 10, Surf Ariel, Surf Magnetic, Surf Excel. So many brand extensions. Price ranging from 40-50 rupees per kg to 200 rupees per liter or per kg. Right. Now, this entire range is offered to that middle class, that group of the society called middle class. And they have identified a middle class with groups with different needs or specific needs. There are people in the middle class who will spend 80 rupees to buy 1 kg of surf, and there are even people in the middle class who will spend 200 rupees to buy a kg of surf. So today the marketer is most interested in that middle class. So this class system is basically used to segment the market, divide the market into groups, and to identify the characteristic of each group. What is their affordability? What are their preferences? What would be their consumption? to Kiribe, from where they will buy, when they will buy, how they will buy, and how much they will buy. All these things or all these factors depend on the class belongingness of an individual. Clear? Understood?
Yes, ma'am.
This is all about social.
Yes, ma'am.
We'll talk about the next topic. So we'll start third module tomorrow. Anybody wants to ask any question? So should we call it a day?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much. We'll meet tomorrow again. Good night.
Thank you, ma'am.